Right, so set this up here. So good morning all. Neil Francois, good morning, sir. Slimy show, yes, morning. Just jumping on for a little bit this morning as I have a late start this morning, but I just needed to address just one issue, which is the trending topic of the day. And given the amount of attention that it's attracting, I felt I needed to touch on it this morning. As I said, I have a little bit of time. Rena Jennings, Joel O'Brien, The Patriot, Dexter James, morning, Angus, Joseph, Will Durant. Yes, sir, late. Yeah, I have some time this morning because I have a webinar around 9:30. Why is this doing this to me? Yes, I have a webinar starting around 9 o'clock. So I'm leaving home late today. Wazid, Augustus Keto, Patricia Reed, Hilton Abraham, Natalie F. Yes, folks, so let me just jump into, as I said, I'm just addressing one issue this morning. And of course, it has to do with the distraction that was provided yesterday by Minister in the Ministry of Housing, Anil Roberts, and the attack that he has engaged in on the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As we are all aware, last night TV6 would have aired the television version of the Express story on Sunday, treating with the first installment of the live sport Secrets Revealed series. And it seems that Mr. Roberts needed a distraction because a lot of people did not purchase the Express on Sunday. A lot of people were not aware of that story. In fact, someone called me on Sunday afternoon after I had completed my live to tell me that someone had forwarded the link to the podcast to them. And that is when they became aware of this story that was published in the Express on Sunday. And as a result of my podcast, they went and accessed the article and read it and were very surprised by the content. And so it seems that Mr. Roberts, so that there's a lot of people out there who did not read the story and would have been, for the first time, made aware of that series last night. So it seems that in attempting to deflect or to distract the public attention away from that story, so he came out with this so-called expose yesterday. Now, the timing of it is not, in my view, coincidental at all. Because if anybody, for those of you who would have looked at the budget debate in the Senate, where Mr. Roberts is as a senator, in winding up his contribution to the budget debate, when the presiding officer, then the vice president of the Senate, indicated to him that his time was up, he, in wrapping up, said he didn't realize that his time had gone so quickly because he was just about to go in on Ralph Gonsalves. But he would save that for Doubles and Coffee, or I think Douglas Politics. And this was more than 2 weeks ago. And he did not speak to the issue on Douglas Politics or Doubles and Coffee as he had promised. But yesterday, he decided to address the issue. So it's a matter of timing. Now, I would have indicated on Sunday that when I saw the story, Express story published, I visited Mr. Roberts' Facebook page of Douglas Politics to see if he would address it, because he is not one to let these things lie, and this is not a new story for him. In fact, every time live sport comes up as a topic in the public space, he's quick to jump out and say that he was exonerated when the live sport report was quashed by the court some years ago, which is totally untrue. Because on the one hand, he speaks about the fact that his name was never mentioned in the audit report. And then he says the court would have vindicated him and exonerated him, but his name was not mentioned in the report. So clearly he's a confused man, but we know that. So whenever live sport comes up, it is almost impossible for conversations to be had without mention being made of the name Andy Roberts. And for good reason, because he was Minister of Sport at the time. It has always been said that live sport was his brainchild, and it was reported, as I would have read for you all on Sunday, that according to former Minister of Finance Larry Hawaii, now Central Bank Governor, Mr. Roberts brought Adolphus Daniel to him to pitch the Maths and English program component for the live sport. And further checks, further stories that would have been published by the Express would have shown that there was a prior relationship between Mr. Roberts and Mr. Daniel, who was the largest single beneficiary of the proceeds of the live sport program. So there is no way that he could escape it. All right. Now, again, since then, he has not spoken to this issue at all. He's skirted the issue, in fact, and will probably throw a little talk. I understand he did a doubles and coffee calling on Faris Al-Rawi to call his name or something like that, daring Faris to call his name. But he has not addressed the article itself in any detail. And I suspect two reasons for that. Why is this thing sticking? So the first reason, from my perspective, as to why he has not addressed it is, one, he's not certain of what the Express knows, what information they have. And so you don't want to jump out yourself too early to attack the story from the get-go. And then later on, you say something now to attack it in an attempt to exonerate yourself. And then later on, further down in the series, they drop a bombshell or they release some information that you cannot walk back and that you cannot deny. So it's better to hush your mouth and try to deflect public attention away from the story, right? So he's not talking about it at all. And then also too, he's being very guarded as to how he approaches it. Now, for those of you who may not have heard what he said yesterday, because after he did his doubles and coffee, his Douglas politics, whatever, and he went after Ralph Gonsalves, his colleague minister, Philip Alexander, decided to get in on the act too. So he put out a whole piece of diatribe. And then this gentleman, Ken Ali, who was the chairman, I think, of the board of TTT or CNMG between 2010 to 2015, he too has gotten in on the act as well and put out some lengthy piece of rubbish. And so the UNC supporters, as is to be expected, have all now jumped in on the bandwagon and talking about DPP and police and involved and it's fraud and all kind of nonsense, because how you could give a HDC house to the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it amazes me that two men who are ministers in the Ministry of Housing and who should have more empirical data than anybody else with respect to every single HDC development could come and talk this pack of rubbish. And I don't know if it is that they exist in a different reality and figure that the only people they're talking to is the fully duns, right? You could fool them because anything you throw out for them, they don't fact check. They just run with it. But there are those of us out there who have sense and who know better. And you all have heard me speak about that Victoria Keys development on more than one occasion. In fact, I mentioned it on Sunday, coincidentally, not anticipating that Mr. Roberts would have pulled that lame stunt yesterday. Now, you all know whenever I say I crave your indulgence, what that means, right? I know many of you all don't like to hear this clown, and neither do I, but For the benefit of those who, I know some people are not on Facebook, and so may not have heard what he said, because I saw that Prime Minister Gonzalez has now responded to him. I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a little bit, just a little bit of it.
And I wondered, why would this man be beholden to the PNM? Why would he be talking with venom against the United National Congress leader and Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamla Persad-Bissessar? His statements were inappropriate, undiplomatic, disrespectful, and partisan to the politics of another sovereign nation, which he had no part to play. But he sung like a piano. But you know the Dogra will always go and research and find things. Well, Ralph Gonzalez, you see, when you jump in, people think you have to declare any and all interests. Ralph Gonzalez, before you jump in the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, to try to lecture the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar on anything that doesn't involve you. She is duly elected in Trinidad and Tobago to forge the foreign policy, the security policy, and any policy in Trinidad and Tobago, to set up the cabinet, run the government. How you jump in, Ralph Gonzalez? And why you jump in like a PNM so? Did you declare any interest? Did you receive any benefit from the PNM? Any benefit whatsoever that may have people in Trinidad and Tobago scratching their bald head like me? Ralph Gonzalez, I ask you, are you married, Ralph Gonzalez? How long have you been married? Do you have 2 children, Ralph Gonzalez? Are your children's names Sole Gonzalez and Storm Gonzalez? Is your wife's name Eloise Gonzalez? I ask this because Honorable Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, did you disclose to Trinidad and Tobago, to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and to the people of St. Vincent and CARICOM, that when you are speaking, you have received, your family has received great benefit from the PNM? And to the members of the PNM, to Keith Rowley, and to the former ministers of housing, and those hired by the PNM to conduct housing policy in Trinidad and Tobago, where after 9.5 years, a paltry 4,775 houses were built. The list of applicants waiting and begging for housing in Trinidad and Tobago now stands at 214,000 citizens. To the PNM, to Rowley, and to Ralph Gonzalez, are these documents that I hold in my hand belonging to the family of Ralph Gonzalez? This letter to Storm Gonzalez, dated the 21st of August 2018, from the HDC, the Housing Development Corporation of Trinidad and Tobago, saying, letter of offer of sale of property at Victoria Keys, Unit 1E, Tower 2, Unit Type, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. This document for Storm Gonzalez of an HDC house in Trinidad and Tobago at Victoria Keys, signed by former HDC director in 2018, Brent Lyons. Ralph Gonzalez, is that your son? He stated here that he is an IT and app development company, and he's a businessman and so on, and that he makes $25,000 exactly per month. You know that the policy in Trinidad and Tobago at the HCC is if you make 25,001 cents, you do not qualify to apply for HDC housing. This here also is another HDC house to an Eloise Gonzalez a housing development corporation house built with taxpayers' money of the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Ralph Gonzalez, is Eloise Gonzalez your wife? Is she in receipt of an HDC house from the PNM? Mr. Ralph Gonzalez, is Soleil Gonzalez your daughter? Is she also in receipt of an HDC house from the PNM, paid for per month by you, Ralph Gonzalez? And in these documents, Ralph Gonzalez, I'm not going to ask you some questions because it's all here. Ralph Gonzalez, your entire family getting house in Trinidad and Tobago from the PNM, your wife, your son, and your daughter, $1.9 million for one, $1.96 million for one, another one for $1.625 million, and another one for $1.3 million, totaling $4.885 million of Trinidad and Tobago taxpayers' value, but it's greater value than that because these houses are subsidized. So the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the taxpayers, paid extra for those houses that you and your family were so lucky to get under the PNM. You see, you should have stayed out of we business, we domestic affairs, because now you have a lot of explaining to do, Mr. Ralph Gonzalez, because the benefit derived to you just on the value of those three properties is $1.25 million TT dollars in savings. Do you have something akin to the Integrity in Public Life Act forms in St. Vincent? Did you declare these three assets given to you, gifted to you? You luckily, your family so lucky, luckier than Trinbagonians. 3 out of 3, 100% you batting at Ralph Gonzalez. Now I can understand why you talk like a PNM, Ralph Gonzalez. Well, let me ask you some questions. Since you like to talk, you say politics is not about entertainment. It's very serious business. And you need serious leaders to run a country. And it mustn't be about entertainment. Well, don't entertain yourself. Entertain these questions here, Ralph Gonzalez. Is your wife named Eloise? Do you have 2 children, Storm Gonzalez and Soleil Gonzalez? Did any of your family, your wife, your daughter, and your son apply in Trinidad and Tobago to the HDC for purchase and or rental of HDC houses? If so, when and where? Who in the PNM government advised you to apply for HDC housing for your family members? Or does the HDC under the PNM advertise in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And if so, how many other citizens in St. Vincent and the Grenadines applied for housing in Trinidad and Tobago and got through and applied? 3 people applied from one family and get 3 houses. Please answer. Did any of your family members receive selection to purchase and or rent or lease HDC properties? If so, who and when was this granted? Is your wife an owner of any other property in Trinidad and Tobago? Who owns the house at Silver Oaks in Pitty Valley? Because if any of your family own any house in Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent, or any other sovereign nation, they do not qualify for subsidized housing under the policy of the HDC and the Ministry of Housing in Trinidad and Tobago. So please answer these questions. Any of your family or your wife, does he own any other property on her own or with you, Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, who is attacking Kamla Persad-Bissessar and saying she's not stateswoman-like and she's misguided? Are you misguided? Did you disclose all of this? What is your son's monthly income at his tech company? Does he earn over $25,000 per month? Because if he does, he put on this form $25,000 and signed it Signing a false declaration in Trinidad and Tobago, Ralph Gonsalves, is criminal. So please answer. What is the revenue or the earnings of your son per month in TT dollars? If so, are you aware, right? Did it bother you or your conscience, Ralph Gonsalves, at any point in time that your wife, your son, and your daughter receive preferential treatment in Trinidad and Tobago, and each receive an HDC while citizens in TNT are suffering, clamoring in a housing crisis? On your Integrity in Public Life Act forms or the similar version in St. Vincent, for a public figure, did you declare these houses as assets? Did you declare your wife's assets? Did you declare a bank account that your wife has with over 486,000 US in it in the Bahamas? Did you declare that on your Integrity in Public Life Act forms in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? And furthermore, if your wife is so wealthy, how does she qualify for subsidized housing in Trinidad and Tobago? And does she own any other properties anywhere else in the world? Are you aware? What mechanism do you use to pay your monthly rental, lease, or payment for your daughter Soleil at HDC? Are these three properties declared on your Integrity in Public Life Act forms? Are you aware that ownership of other properties and land disqualifies one from being able to qualify for an HDC house in Trinidad and Tobago? And I ask again, does your wife own any other property in St. Vincent, in Trinidad, or anywhere else? Who is the owner of the property that your wife used to reside in Silver Oaks? Does that property belong to you, your family, your wife? Do you believe, the Honorable Prime Minister, that it is right for a Prime Minister to receive such favors from a political party in Trinidad and Tobago, then to simultaneously talk out against the other party who defeated your friend and people who you love and gave you benefit? Do you think that is correct without disclosing it? Do you think that is misguided? Or do you think it is unstatesmanlike, Honorable Ralph Gonsalves? Honorable Prime Minister, are you aware that these HDC government properties, constructed houses, are subsidized and that benefits are accrued? Did you declare the benefit that you accrued from one source, being the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the tune of $1.2 million extra? Did you declare that benefit that you received from the PNM? And Honorable Prime Minister, who did you make the request for this housing? Where did you find out about it? Was it made to the Honorable Prime Minister then, Keith Christopher Rowley? If so, when, where, how, and why? Please answer these questions, Mr. Misguided Ralph Gonsalves.
My apologies for putting you all through that insufferable piece of trash. In any other jurisdiction, Anil Roberts would have been looking for a job since last night, right? But this is Trinidad and Tobago, which a lot of people say is not a real place. And constantly and on an almost daily basis, this administration, and by extension, this Prime Minister, continues to demonstrate elections have consequences. They continue to demonstrate to those of you all who bought into yellow is the code and when UNC wins. And those of you who were so upset with the PNM, you couldn't go and cast your ballot. You're vexed. Too bad. Maybe. And for those PNM supporters who used to be coming on social media and talking nonsense about the PNM need a rest, I feel I need to get them a little 5 years, a little 10 years rest. Right? Because they're wicked and they're oppressive and all of that. The amount of rubbish that this man said in this video, this alone is all the evidence that Kamla Persad-Bissessar needs to put him out of his misery. If you had any doubts whatsoever that Anil Roberts does no work in the Ministry of Housing, this video should have told you that. Right? And it's available on his page, Douglas Politics. You could go and listen to it for those of you now joining and didn't hear the whole thing. Clearly, he has no idea what is going on in the ministry. But aside from that, for you as a minister of government and a senator to launch such a scathing attack on no less a person than the Prime Minister of another country. The Prime Minister of another country in that way. Because you upset, because Ralph Gonzalez, speaking in his capacity as one of the several CARICOM heads and daring to opine on what is happening with Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, the United States, spoke out. He didn't necessarily criticize Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, but like several other CARICOM heads, has an opinion on what is happening. And they maintain that the Caribbean region is a zone of peace, not zone of peace as defined by the UNC, which means that in their view, zone of peace means that there must be no crime, no drugs, no nothing. It must just be milk and honey when you get up in the morning and you pull your blinds, as I do every morning, hoping to see milk and honey since the 29th of April, and I've not been able to see it. Apparently, that is their definition of zone of peace. But if you go and you Google what zone of peace means, it's nothing close to what they are trying to defend. In fact, I want to see if Mr. Roberts is now going to do another Doubles and Coffee today to attack the United Kingdom and perhaps attack the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, because it was announced yesterday that the UK has taken a decision that they are no longer going to share intelligence with the United States government with respect to activities taking place in the Caribbean region with respect to suspected drug activity, right? Because they do not want to be complicit with the United States as it pertains to these bombings, and whether or not later on down the road a case may be made out for extrajudicial killings, which could very well see some politicians who supported this finding themselves before the International Criminal Court, as is the case with the former president of the Philippines, Mr. Duterte, right, who waged war on drugs and drug traffickers and drug users in his country when he was president, to the point where there was no due process. So long as you were found to be a drug pusher, a drug dealer, a drug user, you were killed, right? Similar to what is taking place now, where once it is suspected that a vessel is engaged in narcotic trafficking activity, they are blown to smithereens. What the UK is saying, what we had agreed to, is that we would share information, and the intention is that these vessels would be interdicted. You pull up on them, you stop them, you search, and if it is that contraband is found, you would arrest the passengers on board these vessels and you bring them to justice, bring them before a court of law so that they could be tried before a jury of their peers. And if they are found guilty, they would be incarcerated. And if not, right. But that is not happening, and the UK is not prepared. So I don't know if that runs contrary to what Mrs. Prasad Bisesa supports, and maybe Mr. Roberts might later today attack the UK. But nevertheless, so as a minister, right, your job that you are paid over $70,000 a month for is to treat with the issues of low-income housing, right, which is the primary mandate of the Ministry of Housing, by extension, the HDC. And the goodly Prime Minister felt that that ministry needed 3 ministers, right? One earning close to $100,000 a month and the other two over $70,000 a month each. But look at the extent to which this man went. He talking about Ralph Gonzalez's wife has a bank account in the Bahamas with some 400 and something thousand US. Where he get that information from? Is it that she would have disclosed this information, perhaps on documentation, when she purchased the unit at Victoria Keys? Where did you get that information from, Mr. Roberts? The woman's personal information that you have now put out on the people good internet. That is not limited to Trinidad. But when about 800 and something people shared your video, and it has gone far and wide, so now you have made this woman a target because everybody knows that she has at least 400 and something thousand US in her bank account, because you put that over there. You don't know where that is. Whether it's true or not true, you have now made her a target, and by extension, her family a target. But more than that, you went into the HDC, where people's information is supposed to be confidential, and you pull out documents and come and sit down in front of the people, go internet, to do a live, a Doubles and Coffee, to put the woman and the woman's information on blast, as they say, and her husband's information, her whole family, her children. You put all the people's children's name, because all these years I hear about Ralph Gonzalez, I never know Ralph Gonzalez had 2 children. I didn't know the children's name. Now we know all of that. We know what the son does. All of this information is now out there because Mr. Roberts thought it prudent, because he wants to show Mrs. Prasad Bisesa that he could be the best potong, right? The best toothless potong that she has. So he wants to outshine everybody. Look at me, leader. Look me. Look me. The last person that used to do that in the Senate when they were in opposition, where is she today? Where is Jayanti Lakshmidiyal Ramdiyal? Right? Always used to put on a big performance. And where is she? Disappeared off the face of the earth. Can't be found. But anyway. So Mr. Roberts decides to come and engage in this, what you just heard there. Right? And as a minister, is either Mr. Roberts is extremely dishonest or extremely incompetent. But I would like to think is a bit of both, because a lot of what he said inside there is absolute garbage and he ought to know better. You all have heard me speak about the Victoria Keys development before, numerous occasions, and I spoke about it as recent as Sunday. For those of us who may not live in Trinidad, because I'm aware there are a lot of people who listen to me who live abroad, right? Nationals, a lot of you all who migrated many years ago. Some of you all may not be familiar with Diego Martin, because I know I have listeners from all around the country. So Victoria Keys is when you're heading into Diego Martin, after you come off of the Western Main Road and you turn into heading to 4 Roads there. Across on your right, you would see 3 big, beautiful towers overlooking the ocean, right? And across, you have Westmall right there, and then you head lower down into West Moorings, or if it is you go into Diego Martin, right? But those beautiful towers there that were constructed by the Patrick Manning administration as part of their revitalization exercise. You know, and the UNC just tell us about theirs. Mr. Manning was focused on improving the housing stock under the HDC. Now, those units were intended to be low-income units, which is the mandate of the HDC, and by extension, the Ministry of Housing. Just a little lower down from those units, as you head a little more into Diego Martin on 4 Roads there is another building, similar color, not necessarily similar design, on the main road, just before the police station, right? Just a stone's throw away from Starlight Shopping Plaza. Those units were not touched by the People's Partnership. When they came in 2010, construction of Victoria Keys was almost complete. Again, as I said, that was intended to be low-income housing. Behind Victoria Keys, you have another development there, which is called, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it, but it's another HDC development, right? But that one is much older. So that area has a history of HDC housing, right? Now, when the People's Partnership came in 2010, Victoria Keys construction was advanced. But when you look at the location, I don't know if that was the thinking. They probably felt, listen, you see these units here? You see that location? You see that sea view? This too good for low-income housing. This too good for poor people, right? This is a waste for poor people. Can't give them that. So, with almost 300 units in these towers, the People's Partnership decided to convert these units that were intended for low-income housing for the average citizen. Many of you who have been waiting donkey years have your application inside since Jesus was in Pampers, waiting to get an HDC unit, right? And Manning's administration constructed that to contribute to the housing stock of the HDC to be able to provide for these people. What did the People's Partnership do? They decided to convert this low-income housing development into a high-end luxury development to rival and to match what already exists in surrounding areas, right? Because if you look across the road and just a little higher up, you have Bayside Towers, you have Bayshore, you have a little lower down, You have lower down the road, you have the Renaissance. So that fit into the mold of what you're accustomed to in that area, right? It's considered the Big Shot area. Now, all Mr. Roberts had to do, as I did, was to Google Victoria Keys, and he would have seen on the website of the very ministry that he works in, the very ministry that he is a senior public officer for as minister. It's right there. Housing.gov.tt, Ministry of Housing website. The information is there. So for him to come and talk a pack of rubbish about subsidized housing and Mr. Gonzalez's wife and how did they find out about these houses and what was the application process and so on is absolute garbage, rubbish. And he knows that. But he needed a distraction from last night. But kudos to TV6. Kudos to the OCM group and the way that they intend to roll out this live sport series, this live sport secrets series. Why is this thing freezing up on me? Right? Whereby they're not going to do as what they've done in the past and run the whole series in 1 week over 4 or 5 consecutive days. They've instead decided that they're going to run it over a series, a number of weeks. So poor Mr. Roberts, in trying to deflect and distract, is now going to have to find a distraction every week as another phase of this story is published. So we were told that this coming Sunday, we will hear about the extra $8 million that was allocated to Mr. Adolphus Daniel, which we didn't know about before. So when I hear the supporters of the UNC talking garbage about that story is 11 years old and nobody can look up, and that was just PNM propaganda and all that foolishness. Never mind the fact that live sport ended under the UNC, under the People's Partnership. Kamla Persad-Bissessar came to the parliament as prime minister and announced that she was ending that. And nothing to do with the PNM. Anil Roberts resigned as Minister of Sport and as the Member of Parliament for Dabadi Omera then, right? Shame to say that he's my predecessor, but anyway, the damage that he has inflicted on this constituency will take many years to fix. But I'm trying to do it now, right? He resigned, the PNM wasn't in power at that time. After Persad-Bissessar would have read out that document, but we will treat with that over the weekend, on Sunday, when the next installment of that story comes out. When the PNM came in, right, what did they meet? So Mr. Roberts mentions that Mr. Gonzalez's son put down that his salary is $25,000 per month. And he mentioned that specifically because the qualifying income to acquire an HDC housing unit is a household income of $25,000. So if you alone working for $25,000, you could qualify for an HDC house. If you and everybody else in your house, when we add up the income of all of the income earners in the house, it comes up to $25,000. You could qualify for an HDC house. If it's over 25, then they tell you, well, listen, you are now in the bracket where you could go to the private sector, you could go to the bank and get a mortgage to take out and purchase a home, right? You do not qualify for an HDC home, which is supposed to be low income. So the implication that he's seeking to make there is that Mr. Gonzalez's son lied and stated that he was earning $25,000 a month so he could qualify for this Victoria Keys unit, right? When they came in 2010, what did they do? They met the qualifying income for an HDC unit at $25,000 per month. What did they do? They increased the qualifying income for an HDC unit to $45,000 a month. So whether you were an individual earning $45,000 a month or you had a household income of $45,000 a month, they almost doubled the qualifying income to acquire an HDC unit. Why did they do that? Why? Because in doing so, you're complaining now about the number of persons, how the size of the list, 214,000 citizens on the waiting list for an HDC home. It wasn't much lower than that when they came in 2010, because let's face it, every day, every week, every month, citizens are going and signing up, applying for HDC housing. Because as time goes by, persons who were previously unemployed, persons who were previously in school are now gainfully employed and are looking for housing. It's time for them to move out of mommy and daddy's home, and they may not be able to afford a mortgage. They can't approach the private sector because their salaries would not allow them so to do. A lot of these people are looking for rent-to-own units based on the persons who come to my office every week looking for assistance with HDC housing, right? They're looking for rent-to-own, not necessarily mortgage, because a lot of them will not qualify for a mortgage. So he trying to create this whole scenario, but they increased it to $45,000 a month, which meant that you would have added now to the list of persons who were looking or who would qualify for. So it wasn't bad enough that when you came in 2010, the list was 100 and something thousand or close to 200,000. By increasing the qualifying income to 45,000, you have probably tens of thousands of persons who would not have qualified before. All of a sudden, they could now come in and apply. So you added to the burden of the list. But it seems the only interest they had was in Victoria Keys because of where it is located. And as I said before, if you don't know Victoria Keys, you should go and visit. I have been there on many occasions. In fact, my younger sister who died a couple of years ago, she used to live there, right? When she died, that is where she used to live. And so for him talking about the income to qualify for HGC unit is 25,000 and subsidized housing. Mr. Roberts ought to know very well, as a minister in the Ministry of Housing, that Victoria Keys does not fall under the normal housing allocation methodology for the HDC. That while the development is owned by the HDC, it is completely different, right? It does not fall part of the low-income housing stock of the HDC. My sister's salary was close to $40,000 a month, Mr. Roberts. So you're going to ask questions about her too? I have friends who live in Victoria Keys, one of whom is a senior executive for a major energy company in this country. And she makes well over $25,000 a month. And she owns a unit there, right? Which she purchased, took a mortgage from the bank, right? And purchased the unit, which has been on the market, the open market, since 2016, which is something Mr. Roberts ought to know. And then he's talking about if you own property anywhere else in Trinidad and Tobago, in any other territory, you do not qualify for subsidizing housing under the HDC. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Roberts. My friend who owns a 2-bedroom unit in Victoria Keys, who is a senior executive at a major energy company, who's making well over $25,000 a month, she owns other property. In fact, she's a landlord, right? She has property that she's renting. So what, you're going to go after her too? She broke the law. She applied, she went to Dr. Rowley and asked for an HDC unit in Victoria Keys. What about all the other people who own units in Victoria Keys and don't live there, and who are renting it out for as much as $7,000 and $8,000 a month, Mr. Roberts? Because I have some questions for you too. But again, what that video did was just reinforce that you're a buffoon, an idiot, a moron, a clown who should not be anywhere near the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, not even to sweep the pavement in front of the Parliament. Just your presence within 500 meters of the Parliament is a disgrace and a shame. But there it is, your leader has you sitting in the Senate, the upper house, no less, upper house. But I continue. So they came in and they increased the qualifying income from 25,000 a month to 45,000. Why is this thing sticking? Right. Forgive me, folks. I don't know why this thing is sticking. Come on now, man. Oh, boy. Just no, folks. Just no. Oh, boy. Folks, forgive me, but my internet seems to be playing the fool this morning. Nothing we're doing now. All right, so Patricia Reed is saying she's hearing me normal. All right, so I will just continue because it seems to be on my side, it's showing that it's stuck. Right, so let me just read a little bit the background from the HDC, the Housing Ministry's Facebook page. November 6, 2017. Housing Minister clarifies issues raised in Express story, re Victoria Keys. Reference is made to the cover story of today's Express. Thank you so much, folks, will let me know that you all are hearing me. Thanks. Reference is made to cover story of today's Express titled Secret Keys. Government ministers, senator get posh rent to own Victoria Keys apartments, and the related story on page 4 titled Chamfer Ayana get apartments, which both contain inaccuracies. In September of 2016, Cabinet approved the distribution of the 264 units at Victoria Keys. The following was agreed. 206 units will be sold on the open market, 48 units for rent to own under the Cabinet approved allocation policy, 10 units will be reserved for government use. One would recall that the Victoria Keys development began in 2006 by the HDC, where upon completion, the development would provide affordable housing to low and middle income families, as is the HDC's mandate. All right? Now, this was under the PNM. It goes on to say the development at the time was expected to cost TT $200 million and was virtually completed in and around 2010. Subsequent to the People's Partnership assuming government, the Victoria Keys development was modified to include more luxurious fittings and amenities such as fully air-conditioned buildings, swimming pool, clubhouse, play park, tennis courts, multi-story car parks with elevators. And these modifications ballooned the amount spent on Victoria Keys to over $652 million, an increase over $452 million, right, from what the PNM planned to spend. At $652 million, the average cost to construct each apartment would have been approximately TT $2.5 million, which is out of the range of low and middle income earning citizens seeking affordable housing from the HDC. As a consequence, the government approved the distribution of the units at Victoria Keys in the manner as mentioned above. It is important to note that the government has intended for the proceeds of the sales of the units at Victoria Keys to go towards the completion of other stalled HDC projects, which have been in abeyance for over 10 years. All right? So I want to ask Mr. Roberts, how many other HDC developments have luxury fittings and amenities such as fully air-conditioned buildings, swimming pool, clubhouse, play park, tennis courts, and multi-story car parks with elevators? How many other HDC developments have that, Mr. Roberts? And for the 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days that you all in office from 2010 to 2015, how come that was the only HDC development in which you all would have modified with all of these luxury amenities? How come you didn't put none? Just a little lower down the road, right? The units next to the Four Roads police station. How come you all didn't put those amenities there? Why you didn't put it there? Why did you increase the qualifying salary for an HDC unit from $25,000 to $45,000? It was for who to qualify and who to purchase. With respect to his question about how Ralph Gonzalez found out about these units and so on, and did somebody in the PNM tell him about it? The units were put on the open market. If you go on practically any real estate agency, the website of any real estate agency in Trinidad and Tobago, you will see advertisements there for these units. And none of these advertisements say that you must be a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to purchase. None of these advertisements say that you must have a maximum salary of $25,000 a month to purchase. None of these advertisements say that if you own other property or you have interest in any other property, whether it be land, building, or what have you, in Trinidad and Tobago, any other country, that you are disqualified from purchasing these units. None of these advertisements say that, Mr. Roberts. So if all of those were qualifying criteria to purchase these units, these advertisements would say that. Further to that, the monthly fees, the Homeowners Association fees for Victoria Keys is $1,600 a month, Mr. Roberts. Does that apply for low-income housing? Could anybody who is on low income afford to pay $1,600 a month in Homeowners Association fees? What is those HOEs for? HOE fees for? Well, of course, it's to maintain and upkeep the facility, because the Victoria Keys development does not fall under the normal operations of the HDC. They are not responsible for maintaining that facility, and therefore you would have a homeowners association who would collect the $1,600 a month from every one of the residents, and that money would then go into paying the private security, the 24-hour round-the-clock security at the front gate. Because if you are a resident, you have your swipe card, you pull up to the gate, you swipe, the gate opens, you drive in. If you are a visitor, you have to pull up to the security booth, let them know who you come to see, give them the name of the unit, the number of the unit, the name of the person that you're there to see. They will then call and let the person know so and so is at the front gate. Are you expecting them? Yes. And then they will then allow you to come in. And then you drive up and you park, and then you go into the lobby area where you will be met by more security, concierge service. So you have to sign in your name, who you came to see, right? And then they would proceed to tell you, well, okay, you could go up. You head to the elevator, and then you go to whichever floor, and you go in and you meet with whoever it is that you want to meet. There is no other HDC development that has those services. So it is clear what the motive of the People's Partnership was when they converted Victoria Keys from low-income housing to a luxury housing development. Who that was for? Not for the average citizen that Mr. Roberts is seeking to defend. And, oh, you have so many hundreds of thousands of citizens who waiting forever for a house, and the PNM went and sell these houses to Ralph Gonzalez. And favors. There were no favors. And as Mr. Gonzalez had to respond this morning, he's in the middle of an election campaign. He has to take time out of his election campaign to come and address this nonsense, because he has been attacked by no less a person than a minister of government in Trinidad and Tobago, put there by Kamala Persad-Bissessar. The second question that must be asked: is Mr. Roberts trying to influence the outcome of the general election in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which I believe is due on the 27th of this month, by asking questions about the Integrity Commission and if Mr. Gonzalez and his family declared these properties and so on? Is that what he's trying to do? Is he now providing information and fodder to the opposition in St. Vincent so they could now go and run and introduce this into the campaign and sow seeds of doubt into the minds of the citizens that somehow Ralph Gonzalez thieving money and going and buying a property in Trinidad, that Ralph Gonzalez committed a crime because he didn't make a declaration, and you are now seeking to involve who, the police and the DPP and the Integrity Commission in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to launch an investigation into Mr. Gonzalez? Because Mr. Roberts needs to understand that as a minister of government, your words carry weight. You are not an ordinary citizen. So if somebody like well, I can't say me, but the average Joe, but to go on social media and talk that, nobody ain't taking you, nobody don't know you. But this is a minister who is holding up documents, confidential documents from the ministry where he presides, putting out this information in the public domain, so which gives it credence and gives it legitimacy. And so now it is going to introduce this into the general election campaign in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Where is Ralph Maraj to speak on this issue as the ambassador to CARICOM? Will Mrs. Persad-Bissessar speak to this issue today? Highly doubt that she will. Most likely she will not, right? Because if she had nipped this in the bud since then, since Roberts, when he indicated in the budget debate that he intended to go after Ralph Gonsalves, if she had stopped it since then, telling me, don't go down that road, we would not be here today. But we know it is just a distraction from the live sports series, where we are going to be getting over the course of the next couple of weeks information, additional information, which we did not know before, which we were not aware of. So when we thought that this live sport thing was stink and dirty and was smelling to the high heavens, it seems that it's not even going to expand beyond that. And so he is looking now to try and distract. So today, the conversation is all about Ralph Gonsalves get a family buy 3 HDC houses. And it is based on information that is totally incorrect. Now, let me get to Philip Alexander and the nonsense that he put out to try and support his body, a brotherhood of wrongdoers. Hear what he says. The real issue in these explosive revelations contained in Minister Anil Roberts' video is these are taxpayers' subsidized houses for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago who are in need of assistance in purchasing their own home. We have a demand deficit of over 100,000 houses. And not only should non-residents not have access to the already scarce supply of houses, but multiples of persons in one family should not either. There are obviously questions that need to be answered, not the least of which is the clear bias displayed against the Honorable Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar in favor of others willing to break the rules for friends, family, and financiers. Out of this, police investigation should be triggered and whatever agreements terminated where legally possible, so that these houses can be made available to actual citizens of this country in desperate need of housing. Every time we think we know how far the PNM went when in government to dirty and corrupt every avenue of state, they surprise us further with how much lower they are prepared to go. The public is getting more incensed with each new revelation, and rightly so. The PNM when in government betrayed us all, but more so their own supporters, many of whom are hanging by a thread, being fed empty promises by a ruthless band of organized shirt and tie political criminals. This is what Philip Edward Alexander says. Minister in the Ministry of Housing, who himself ought to know that Victoria Keys does not fall under the subsidized housing program. When those units were put on the open market, they were sold at market value. So what it cost to build, or based on what a private valuator would have determined the market value is, the most you could get for each of these units is what it was sold for to be able to recoup. So even if it may have cost more to purchase the unit at the expense of the HDC, if a valuator says this is what it is worth, this is what the most that somebody who could afford to get a mortgage and the private market is willing to pay for this is what you're going to get. So don't mind you spend $2 million to construct it and to put it together. Nobody is going to pay more than 1.4 million or 1.5 million for a 1-bedroom unit, right? They're not going to do that. So you will just have to stand the bounce. But to listen to this clown talking about legal action to take back these houses, to give it to citizens who are in desperate need of housing, really? Who are you going to give that to? Right? Who on the list, the HDC's waiting list, are you going to give that to? Because the average citizen who has an application inside the HDC cannot afford to pay 1.4 million, 1.8 million, 2.2 million. In fact, the penthouse in Victoria Keys is available for $4.2 million. Which low-income citizen could afford that? Mr. Roberts and Mr. Alexander. And further, Philip Alexander is supposedly into housing development, right? Into property development. So he should know better. In fact, I believe that is why Kamla Persad-Bissessar put him in the Ministry of Housing, because I've seen him do videos before where he speaks about being involved in property development. So if these two men who are earning over $70,000 a month do not know that these housing units in Victoria Keys are not part of the low-income housing stock, they should be fired with immediate effect. It tells me that they're not doing their jobs. But we see it, because if Mr. Roberts has time to sit down and do live and talk rubbish, if Mr. Alexander has the time to dress up in a suit and go up to our islands in the constituency of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, which is represented by Stuart Young, and he has time when he should be in his office doing work, instead has the time to go and do a live to troll Stuart Young, because Stuart Young, doing the work that he's supposed to do as the Member of Parliament for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West, decided to walk his constituency a couple of days ago and went to lend assistance in cleaning up the area, and was able to call upon the services of some of the former CPEP contractors who are now out of work and former CPEP employees who are now out of work, and to provide them with some level of sustenance in terms of, giving them a little something to clean up the area. So you kill two birds with one stone. You clean up the immediate surroundings, which is overgrown with bush, but also these persons who are desperately looking for work, who thought that phase one of the government's employment program would have catered for them, and they were sorely disappointed, who thought that phase two would have catered to them, and they are sorely disappointed and looking for work now. Stuart Young decided to go up there, as he normally does, and to bring some level of relief. And Mr. Alexander, who fancies himself to be Stuart Young's shadow minister or shadow MP, went up there afterwards to do a live, to complain and talk about, oh, Stuart Young only come up here because, and he don't normally do that. And he come up to talk about Philip will fix it. But that's all you did. You brought nothing of substance, nothing of value to the area, but you just come to troll Stuart Young. So anywhere Stuart Young goes, you feel you need to go after and do a live. But he had time to do that. Your taxpayers' money. When you have to go to work from 8 to 4, you get 1 hour lunch every day, and you are required to be in your office doing work. But he and Mr. Roberts have time to do everything else except the work that they are being paid to do, as evidenced by the nonsense that is coming out of their mouth. This man, neither one of these persons should be working in that ministry, because clearly they have no idea what is going on there. I could go right now on just one, on the website of one real estate agency, and you will see you have about 20-something units in Victoria Keys that are being advertised for either sale or rent. And as I said before, there is no prerequisite, no requirement, no HDC requirement to purchase any of these units. So all that rubbish you hear about Robert's talk there, garbage, nonsense, it does not apply. So he is doing two things. One, trying to create a distraction from the live sport series, and two, it appears that he's now seeking to interfere in the general election of St. Vincent and the Grenadines by putting information out there that perhaps he's hoping the opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will pick up and now start to talk about in the campaign as it wears down. But just about 2 weeks to go before election day in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you now come in to sow these seeds of discord. Whatever happened to diplomacy? The same Ralph Maraj who used to accuse Dr. Rowley and the PNM of destroying Trinidad and Tobago's image, and we were once the leaders in the Caribbean and we were well respected, and now we are a laughing stock. What are we now? The first time they were there, it wasn't bad enough with Trinidad and Tobago is not an ATM. That wasn't bad enough. The first time wasn't bad enough when a hurricane passed and licked up a couple Caribbean islands, and Mrs. Prasad, the sister's prime minister, said, well, if all you want help, we could help you all, but one hand can't clap. So you all want help from us, no problem, but you need to use our contractors and so on and all of these different things. Right? That wasn't bad enough. It wasn't bad enough that when the PNM came in 2015, that our relationship with Jamaica was on the fringe, and that it took Dr. Rowley having to go to Jamaica and meet with Mr. Holness and his new government to be able to quell the situation, restore calm and confidence, and salvage our trading relationship with Jamaica. So they've come back now and they're doing the same thing, but on steroids. But let me just touch on one thing, because as I said, I wasn't planning to stay very long. Leroy Jack is saying Philip Alexander, most failed 1% clown, and he can't build a doghouse. Right, that is so true. But let me just touch on this quickly. So we're seeing now on social media, and I will talk more about this on Sunday, but we're seeing now on social media where a lot of UNC supporters are openly expressing their dissatisfaction with the party that they voted for just 6 months, into government. So let me just read this for you all, right? Someone just sent me this earlier on this morning. This is from a gentleman by the name of Neville Seatal. Hear what Mr. Seatal says. I am a lifelong UNC member. I have never voted for any other party, but I have never voted for what is taking place. Too much people is on the breadline and is the most vulnerable. People enthusiasm has turned to despair. People who are put in positions are starting to abuse that position, and it's like a new nightmare has started. No empathy is being shown whatsoever. Plenty of people on the breadline are people who voted UNC because they were expecting better. The Prime Minister needs to address this and quick. Today is the 11th and I haven't gotten paid as yet. Daily paid workers ain't get paid 2 months now, and not a word from Ms. Khadija Amin. This is not good enough. Another person says, everybody knows where I stand politically. So when the new government came into power, I was like, let's see if they can prove us wrong and do right by the people of this country. Well, shaking my right. Hundreds of my friends and colleagues have gotten fired. No salary on time every month. Up till now, I have not received mine. Bills to pay, kids' school, loans to pay, and then my son got fired on Friday, not because he did something wrong, but because of a new policy that they just made up. No family members are to work in the same department. After working for 2 years, what? I kept quiet because I didn't want to be victimized, but now I am angry. We knew what we had, didn't know what we were getting. Murder is still being committed. Kidnapping is now up, and this is what you all voted for. I also have a voice note which I will not play, right? Because just in case I don't want anybody to recognize the individual's voice. But this is somebody who was working as a watchman for URP and is now indicating that they are still owed, that the money is owed to them, that they were supposed to be paid in lieu of notice, has not been paid. The most economically vulnerable, struggling. But we have grandiose plans on the horizon. We're going and build a boutique hotel on Carrera Island, and we're going to build waterfront apartments, 1,800 waterfront apartments for whom? Victoria Keys, 25% of the apartments in Victoria Keys remain empty, unoccupied, as of today's date, since they went on sale in 2017. Still unoccupied, can't find buyers. But yet still we're going to build more waterfront houses, waterfront apartments, for who to buy. I had cause yesterday to go down to, I went downtown to get a charger for a device that I have. And for the first time in a long time, probably in years, I went to a boutique mall. And as I was walking through, because I know there was an electronics store inside there, and I'm walking through, and I'm surprised at the number of empty stalls, empty kiosks inside there. I went through Golden Doors, Plaza Golden Doors, same thing, empty kiosks inside there. Tyne Plaza, across Henry Street side, empty kiosks inside there. Excellent City Center, you walk inside there, empty kiosks inside there too. But they want to go and build boutique mall and commercial space for whom? Who are you building it for? When the existing establishments are struggling to get tenants, where are you going to get tenants for all of these new high-end accommodations that you are going to construct? But the supporters clapping, yes, man, yes. UNC is great. Kamla Persad-Bissessar, last night I heard this man, Ansel Roger, who finally resurfaced after all these months. Right? He looked like he was in hibernation and he come out. Because apparently they had the AmCham had some conference yesterday at the Hyatt, and he attended. And he was interviewed afterwards by the media. And to hear this man say that Kamla Persad-Bissessar is the greatest prime minister. Now he fumbled there. He needed a couple seconds to determine, do I really want to say that she was the greatest prime minister this country ever had? Do I really want to say that? Do I risk angering those people who would argue that they were greater? Patrick Manning was a far better prime minister. Keith Rowley was a far better prime minister. Eric Williams was a far better prime minister. Do I want to? And then he said, you know what, the hell with it. Let me just say it. She is the greatest prime minister ever in the history of our country. This is the same man who between 2010 to 2015 dragged an effigy, right? Dragged an effigy of Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Did a whole series telling you why Kamla Persad-Bissessar is the worst thing ever. He campaigned 2015 to get her out of office and is now coming to tell you that she is the greatest and the best prime minister this country ever had, ever saw. But we will talk more about that interview on Sunday because he said some things and Munilal said some things which is highly contradictory. Right? But we will save that for Sunday. But I just want to end as I started, right? For Mr. Roberts on your diatribe that you just put out there. Failed distraction. Failed distraction. So for all the UNC supporters who call in for police investigation and for the DPP to get involved and the AG and all this nonsense, these apartments are on the open market. Anybody, anywhere in the world can purchase it. And I challenge Mr. Roberts and Mr. Alexander to provide us with any document that states that Victoria Keys falls under the normal distribution methodology for the HDC and that it is not open to the general public to purchase, regardless of whether you are a citizen of this country, regardless of whether you own property or not, regardless of whether you earn over $25,000 a month or not. Produce a document that says that if you don't satisfy these criteria, you cannot purchase an HDC unit, a Victoria Keys unit. They cannot. Just like Federation Park Villas. When you drive into Federation Park from Rapsy Street on the left-hand side, some really, really nice villas that were constructed there, again, by the Manning administration. And the intention was for these units were supposed to house certain senior government officials, representatives from Tobago who would be serving in the parliament, right? A place for them to stay when they're in Trinidad, when parliament is in session, and some other officials. That was where, when Keishon Walcott won the gold in 2012, the People's Partnership had originally given him a unit there. And then he said that it was too small, and they ended up giving him, I think, 2 houses, which they then converted into 1 house where he currently lives, I believe, somewhere in Valsine, right? But those villas were put on the open market, just as Victoria Keys, by the last administration. And those villas start at a price of approximately $3 million for one. But that also falls under the HDC. So I want to ask Mr. Roberts and Mr. Alexander, please tell us, is that low-income housing? Will you all be distributing those units, Victoria Villas, adding it to the low-income housing stock? And that somebody who is earning less than $25,000 a month as a household income, that they can expect to get a call from HEC telling them you've been allocated a unit at Federation Park Villas, or that you have been allocated a unit at Victoria Keys. And perhaps these 2 gentlemen can tell us when was the last time the allocation unit of the HDC gave a low-income earner a unit at Victoria Keys. Please tell us that. Please tell us when was the last time that was done. And if it is your intention, so to do. And once these people move into these units, is it your intention that they would be required to pay these $1,600 a month HOA fees? Mr. Roberts and Mr. Alexander? Is the HEC going to pay that $1,600 a month for them? Will they be called upon to pay it, or will they be exempt from it, but they are still able to participate and partake of all of these luxury amenities that the People's Partnership put there between 2010 to 2015 for the lawyer and doctor and architect and businessman friend, right? All the businessmen friend who looking to buy a unit for the outside woman to put them there so they could live the nice life. Are you going to put low-income earners there and they could enjoy the pool and the gym and the tennis court, the clubhouse, the covered parking, the air-conditioned unit and all of that, and not have to pay the $1,600 a month HOA fees? And given that fact, are you now going to tell all of these real estate agencies and companies that are advertising these units for sale on their website to anybody, anywhere in the world, because you could be anywhere in the world and just go and pull up Terra Caribbean, My Bunch of Keys, Viridian Realty, any one of these, and see these units there, and you can reach out to them and indicate your desire or willingness to make a purchase. So are you now going to tell these people, take these units off of your website because they are no longer available for sale? Please tell us. And how do you intend to recoup that money? Because if the average cost of an HGC low-income unit is about 750,000 max, 800,000 or thereabout, are you going to give somebody a $2.5 million unit for 800,000, Mr. Roberts? Tell us that. Let us know. Is the UNC going to reverse the decision of the last administration? And I wouldn't be surprised if they do that, and then give it to who they want for that price. Because they just corrupt and unprincipled enough to do that. To say they're taking these units off the open market, that they're going to put it back into the pool for low-income housing and then give it to their friends, family, and financiers at the low-income housing price. So they win, right? And nobody would be any the wiser unless you have a whistleblower in the HGC who will provide that information to the opposition to say, look, they reversed the policy of the last administration, but they sell this unit, this 3-bedroom unit, for $850,000 when it was going for $2.8 million. Or they sold this 2-bedroom unit to this person for $750,000 when the previous price, as established by the last administration, to recoup the money that was spent to construct this apartment, when it was $2 million or $2.2 million, they sold it to this doctor or this lawyer for $850,000. Don't be surprised if they do that. They're just corrupt enough to do it. But I wait to see how this unfolds. But folks, Deborah Rockman says this wicked UNC government hijacked the election with a dirty-handed deal, and look the mess they have this country in. Their mandate is to attack any and everybody who speaks against them. Yes, correct, Jennifer. Distraction. That's all they're about. Imagine TTT, which is a state-owned media house, is now reposting content from the Facebook pages of government ministers. So I saw Michelle Benjamin had her constituency office day. Right? So she's meeting with constituents, and she took some pictures and posted it on her Facebook page. I do that too every week. But TTT doesn't repost. I never see TTT post up on their Facebook page, Member of Parliament from Malabar, Morsika, Dominic Romain meeting with constituents and so on. The exact same wording and caption that she put up. Imagine that is what TTT is doing with your taxpayers' dollars. They go in and looking at the Facebook page of government ministers, not doing their work as ministers, but as MPs. So as the same as the rest of us, and you posting that on your Facebook page when you should be posting news content. That is the content. So TTT seems starved now for content. But then when you put a set of hacks and UNC lackeys on the board, people like this racist Miss Santa Cruz and people like Mikey K of Underground Report fame, who at one point in time was charged. This man was the beneficiary of Live Sport himself, to the tune of some $92,000 a month. And we will go into that come the weekend. We will go back to Mr. Warner's contribution in the parliament on the motion of censure of the then Minister of Sport, where Mr. Warner would have come and read out documentation that was provided to him, right? Which did not find its way in the public domain otherwise, talking about companies by the name of Dustbin Divers, who got how much hundreds of thousands of dollars in contracts, where catering under Live Sport, $58 million was spent on catering, and you will see the kind of ridiculous monies that was spent on that. Don't worry, I'm going to go to Hansard and get that information, and we will come back and we will discuss it. We will play the videos that some of you all seem to forget. And we will also reference posts that are being put out by attorneys who should know better. So-called accomplished attorneys who are now trying to defend the indefensible and putting out a set of misinformation outside there. And because of their reputation, people figure, well, because he says it, that must be true. Because he's a big-time attorney. And putting out rubbish and trying to, boy, these people have no shame, no shame. But we will discuss that over the weekend, folks. Rookman says, Yes, Natasha Scott Hubert is saying you can't even watch TTT News. It's only about what the government is doing. Exactly. TTT News and well, the whole TTT network has just basically become a government mouthpiece. Here it is that we are in the throes of the Christmas season, sweet 100 days of Christmas, all the time under the PNM. All you hear in whole day, para, Christmas music, whole day. Now, Christmas music being interrupted by government announcements, speeches from the Prime Minister, speeches from this minister. Maybe if the PNM was doing that, we'd probably still be in office today. Because one thing this government does very well is to broadcast what they claim to be doing. But when you're doing nothing, you have to pretend. So every little thing that they do, you see, ministers now, and we spoke about it in the Standing Finance Committee during the budget, the amount of money that has been allocated to all of these various ministries for promotion and advertising and all of these different things. And then when you go on the Facebook pages of a lot of these ministries, instead of being fed content about the work that the ministry is doing, what you're seeing, the minister dressed up in a Santa Claus hat and sitting around a table with staff members and everybody in Santa Claus hat, and somebody dressed like an elf comes handing out some kind of sweets or something, and then they start to dance and all of that. Or you see the minister walking out of her office and she's chatting with the one of her assistants and so on. The minister jumping out of the back of the Prado or the whatever vehicle it is. That's what it's all about. Nothing of substance, just promoting the ministers. They're eating. That's what they're showing you. The many moods of Jolene John, or they want to show you Jolene John wardrobe. The other day, there's a video, again, on the ministry website, or I think she put out a video when she pulled up to work 4:30 in the morning, and she's driving in, so they had to show you the whole time she drive into the car park, she reverse, she go forward, she come back, show you the whole thing of her parking, and then she come out and she do a little dance because whatever music she was playing in the car. That is the content that they're feeding you. That is what you, as taxpayers, paying for, right? Because I don't think all of these ministries necessarily had a videography unit before. And if they do, these videographers are being paid. They're receiving a salary every month. I would imagine to provide content about the work of the ministry, not to flam and show the minister eating doubles or to show the minister by somebody's house turning a pot, right? This is the kind of content that they're putting out at your expense. While CPEP workers struggling, well, former CPEP workers, former URP workers struggling, forestry workers, former, also struggling, seeing Christmas around the corner, and all who had plans earlier on this year, well, what they're going to do for Christmas and what they're going to buy and all of that, out the window. 2 phases of the government's employment drive announced, and nothing for these people. Nothing for these people. I saw somebody do a video just a couple of days ago from St. Anne's. Apparently she works there, right? And she's talking about her friends, family members who were working in these programs and who have lost their jobs. And she said it's only a matter of time before you start to see them end up here, because she's seeing signs. Some of them so frustrated, talking to themselves like they're going mad because there are no opportunities. They were holding out hope that the budget would have provided some level of relief. Many people thought, okay, they would bring back the CPEP program or the URP program in a different format, and I get back my job. That has not happened. They say, Rowley say, the rich must get richer. When they make the rich richer, they create opportunities for the poor. Wanted to kill Rowley for that. But now they unveil this whole grandiose revitalization plan, the focus of which is to make the rich richer, because it's the same rich, it's the rich people money they need to do that. They don't have the money for it. The same 1% that they cost, the same 1% they're going after now. Bring your money and come and build, right? We will give you the land, you just come and build and invest money. So Jolene says she's going on a roadshow abroad to sell this grandiose plan. So they put out, they're requesting expressions of interest, not requests for proposals. Just come and tell us if you're interested and what you're interested in. But I want to leave on this question, right? Just to ask the government. And more so, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. You all opened this forum expressions of interest. So any contractor, any business owner who is interested in partnering with the government on these projects, for you to come and for them to go and sign up the form and whatnot to indicate your willingness to participate. Does that include, Mrs. Posad-Bissessar, the same greedy, eater food, corrupt P&M contractors who just a couple months ago you were telling your ministers to stay away from? The same greedy, wicked, eater food P&M contractors, Madam Prime Minister, who you said, or you told the population, some of your ministers were meeting in the Hyatt and having drinks and lunch with, that you told them that if they continue to meet with these people, you will bust their head and fire them. Are you going to, when you, well, now that you've opened your expression of interest, right? When these people come, these same greedy, eater food P&M contractors, these corrupt P&M eater food contractors that you've warned your ministers to stay away from, is there a sign in any of these rooms that says, if you are a greedy, corrupt eater food P&M contractor, you need not apply? Or are you now welcoming these greedy, eater food, corrupt P&M contractors with open arms to partner with you and your administration to realize this grandiose national revitalization plan? Is it that all is forgiven? As Jack Warner used to say, yesterday was yesterday and today is today. So bygones, in the space of 2 months, bygones have now been bygones. You don't care about that anymore. They're no longer corrupt. They're no longer greedy. They're no longer eater food. Their money is welcome. All are welcome at the table of the House of the Rising Sun. All right, so it's okay now for your ministers to go back and rub shoulders with these guys to convince them to come on board, right? It's okay to have lunch with them, have dinner with them, have drinks with them in the Hyatt, in an attempt to convince them or to persuade them to bring their money and invest in this pie in the sky development. I'm just asking, Madam Prime Minister. Brian Batiste says Santa Kamala is in bed with the 1%, just as Pandey did with the parasitic oligarchy. Annette McConney says, up to this morning, I see Julie John driving in her workplace. That's all they're doing. Propaganda thing. Nothing of substance. So if you want to get information on these ministries, waste that time going to their Facebook pages. Unless you want to be entertained to see the minister walking out of the office and, and pretending to be having conversation. Oh. But meanwhile, while they're planning to spend all this money to develop this revitalization plan, simple things can't get done. I have a whole host of streetlights in my constituency that needs to be repaired. Every time I send a letter to TNTech, to the general manager, I get a response from him. So kudos. Well, the former acting manager, general manager, the one who's on his way out, because it was announced that there's a new guy coming in effective the 1st of December. So the existing acting, he has been very responsive, and I will at least be replying to my letters, and he will indicate, well, this person or that person would reach out to you, but so far nobody has reached out. We have a number of potholes in the constituency that needs to be repaired, some which existed prior to April 28th, some which would have developed after April 28th. So I know the UNC supporters who listening will come and say, but the PNM was there. Why didn't fix it? Because the thing about potholes, all right, is that it's not a one-time fix. They tend to come back. And Tumpuna Road, which is in desperate need of work, that was earmarked for a complete overhaul, similar to what was formerly called O'Meara Road, which is now the Lisa Morris Julian Boulevard. The kind of work that was done there to expand that to treat with the issue of traffic, Tumpuna Road was next on the list. Now that is on hold. The Arima Borough Corporation, under whose remit much of Tumpuna Road falls under, their budget was cut by about $12 million. And so last night I had a meeting with some of my councillors from the Arima Borough Corporation who have informed me of the challenges that we will have for the next fiscal with respect to repairing, doing simple things as fixing potholes, patching potholes, because the money, the shortfall in monies that was sent to them, they have already started the process now of sending workers home. Some of these workers have been there for years. Some of them have in the IT department and so on have agreed to take pay cuts just to keep their job because they know how hard the job market is outside there. So it's either you part ways and it's these and this is what I was told, that the workers are the ones who came and said, look, we're willing to take a pay cut. But when these people have rent to pay and mortgages to pay and kids to send to school and other bills and other commitments to meet every month, a pay cut could be devastating, but at least they have something coming in that they could at least pay some of the bills. But this is when UNC wins, everybody wins, right? Well, these people didn't win, and I'm sure some of them voted for the UNC. Some of them bought into yellow is the code. Today, you're either out of work or you just got a salary cut. So we're right back to the 1980s under the NAR. Yeah, but the 10% cut and loss of cost of living allowance and all of these things, that is happening in the Arima Borough Corporation. So when people come into me every week and I want to get a work in the corporation, I'm looking for a job in the Arima Borough Corporation, they are not hiring. They are actually sending home persons because they don't have the money. Thanks to your government cutting their budget by $12 million. Much of the money that they've gotten is to go to pay outstanding arrears on projects that were undertaken in the last fiscal. So even then, they don't really have that much money for new projects. So they're trying to cut here, there, and everywhere to see how they could maintain employment and what little work they could do. Much of what I get done in my constituency is thanks to my councillors, the Arima Borough Corporation and the Tunapuna Piarco Regional Corporation, right? I have gotten nothing from any government minister in the last 6 months with me writing constantly. The best I could hope for is a response from them telling me my letter was received and that they would look into it. But that's about it. I have gotten nothing. So any little pothole that I get patched, even in my own neighborhood. So they're making me look bad because I have potholes in my very neighborhood and the MP living here and you have potholes. How does that reflect on me? Makes me look incompetent, but I doing my work. I am reaching out to the authorities who have the power and who have the resources to be able to fix it, and they're not doing it because they're giving priority to the UNC constituencies. And these are the same people who complained about geographic discrimination for 10 years, how the PNM suffered them and so on. If that is the case and it was wrong, one would think that when you all get into office, you would show the PNM how it's done. You aren't going to engage in geographic discrimination. They're going to take care of everybody. In my own constituency, the UNC got over 7,400 votes. And some of the worst roads in my constituency is in UNC Heartline, where they got the most amount of votes. It is there. And I am begging for them to fix the roads for their own supporters, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. But if it is the intention is to make me look bad, I don't know how to do it. I have my receipts. Every single letter that I send to every minister, I have it to show. And in due course, I will show it. Whether it be that I have meetings in my constituency, inviting persons to come out so that we, myself and my councillors, we can account to them as to what we've been doing. I did promise them every 6 months we would do that, and so it is due. Or whether it is that we are going to produce videos where I have discussions with my councillors, they could explain the situation, and we put it out there for everybody to see that we are not sitting on our hands and just collecting salary under false pretense. We are working hard and we're trying to get things done, but this government is making it extremely difficult to do so. But I can tell you, if and whenever the PNM gets back into office, and if I am part of that administration, I am not going to support any administration where that kind of thing is taking place. The resources of the government belongs to everybody, and it should be administered as such. Because in every constituency, we have PNM supporters and we have UNC supporters. And because we might not hold a constituency, we cannot punish our supporters in these constituencies because we tell ourselves it's a UNC constituency, so we're not taking care of them. Now, I have no evidence that is what the PNM did. In fact, people will tell you the PNM was doing too much work in UNC constituencies and not enough in their own, which is why we lost some of the constituencies that we did. But we are prepared to do the work as best we can over the course of the remaining 4 years and 8 months before the next general election, right? And Kurt PW is saying, I believe that the hope is that they make you look inept, creating discord and frustration among your constituents. That's exactly what they're doing. We have a local government election coming up, right? In 2027, unless they decide to call it before. And my councillors are struggling, taking licks, plenty licks, because when they decide to walk their district, well, look coming here for, they ain't doing nothing, call over there, the road, look at that big pothole there, look, this needs to do, and that need to do, and it's not getting done. You think they want to hear the corporation don't have money? But the corporation don't have money because the government isn't giving them, and the only hope now is when mid-year review comes around in May, June next year, that they could beg and get a little something, or maybe the minister would realize you're suffering your own people. Imagine they have an alderman on the Arima Borough Corporation, the UNC, right? No regard for her. No regard for her. She too is affected. But what are you going to do? Because all of the councillors on the Arima Borough Corporation is PNM. So it's easy for them to suffer PNM. Suffer the Arima Borough Corporation. But we will see what we could do, right? So I'm supposed to start working with one of my councillors today. Had to brace myself for the cuss, but yeah. Mario Guevara says yesterday had a bomb scare at the Prime Minister's office, wondering what sensitive file would be removed or missing as a result. So true. Under the 10 years of the wicked, evil, oppressive Keith Rowley, there was never any bomb scare. 6 months under when UNC wins, everybody wins Prime Minister. And all these things happening, people want to blow up the Attorney General office, bomb scare in the Prime Minister office, people want to kill this minister and who want to kill that minister and all of that. Winners don't do these things. So much so now that the activists who campaign hard for them on social media now coming out and talking out. People suffering. Imagine a man like God Christopher, who you couldn't say anything negative about Kamala Persad-Bissessar. He ready to coffee in your face. He now is attacking, well, let me just touch on that quickly before I go, right? Let me pull it up here. There he says, it is, let me see, where is it, right? He says, if the PNM wasn't so weak as it currently is, the UNC would have been in plenty trouble already because Kamala and them making plenty fatal mistakes. Another one, he says, right now, plenty UNC activists are hungry, angry, and losing patience. Imagine Twiggy, who is a known PNM, get food long before most well-known UNC soldiers. That could never be right. Another one, most of the CPEP, URP, and reforestation worker class are suffering right now under this Kamala UNC government. Something has to be done very, very soon. Kamala made a big mistake. He goes, another one, Kamala should have never shut down CPEP and URP so soon and abrupt because small shops and parlors are missing that cash flow, which is negatively affecting the national economy. This God Christopher. God Christopher, who is a staunch and is a staunch PNM, UNC activist when he used to be on Power 102, right? He used to be there cussing the PNM morning, noon, and night. He had this health center, this old health center in Mova there, Coconut Drive or somewhere there, that the UNC had given to him 2010 to 2015, and he said it was a homework center and he was developing this and that, and when the PNM came in 2015, they took it back from him because he was too damn disrespectful. You call in Fitzgerald Hines, the MP for the area, Fitzgerald Swines, and expect the man to accommodate you? No, you look for that. But now they're feeling the pinch, at least some of them brave enough to come out and say what they're saying. Right? Some of them. A lot of them saying it behind closed doors. They're coming out in public, oh, Mrs. Persad said Kamala is the best thing ever. And then as soon as they go behind closed doors, Kamala so-and-so, this UNC so-and-so. We didn't vote for that. We didn't vote for that. All they vote for that. Emerson Brown says Sangre Grande is in a mess. School field not being cut, local field abandoned. Don't talk about the roads, grass coming onto the main road. Now I saw in the newspapers this morning, they are now that UDCOT has taken a decision to ban fets taking place in the car park of the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. In the car park, right? Now, To the best of my knowledge, these FET promoters would pay for the use of the car park, and they are required to put down a deposit so that if anything is damaged or whatever it is, and for the cleanup and stuff afterwards, if they don't do it, that money is forfeit and would be used for that purpose. So the Brian Lara Cricket Academy was making money. Now, the UDCOT says, well, nah, none of that anymore, no more FETs. You know why? And when you read the comments, some supposed UNC supporters, they're too happy about that. Oh, yes, because why? It's PNM. Yeah, apparently UNC people don't attend these FETs. So there's a FET promoter who already booked out that venue to host an event for Carnival. 12,000 persons. And now he's up a Gumtree to find an alternative venue because they've been told that no longer will be FETs, would FETs be allowed in the Brian Lara car park. So outside of cricket season, if it have no CPL, nothing happening at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. So it's not making any money. When for the carnival season, you could make a little something. The vendors who would go down there and make a sale for carnival, for these FETs. You're taking bread out of these people's mouths too. But they say when UNC wins, everybody wins. And in the eyes of their supporters, this government could do no wrong. You remember when Donald Trump was campaigning the first time for president, while on the campaign, at one time he made a statement to the effect that that he could go out on Fifth Avenue and shoot someone point blank in the face and he wouldn't lose a single vote. And it's the same thing happening here. Kamla Persad-Bissessar could come on a platform and say, all UNC supporters dotish, all you're stupid, you all are a cult. And they will just laugh because Kamla is something else, yes? And still vote for her. Still come and tell you she's the best thing since sliced bread. She's the goddess, they call her that. She's the queen, she's the mother of the nation. And then they want to call the PNM a cult. I never hear nobody in the PNM call Dr. Rowley a king. I never hear anybody in the PNM say Dr. Rowley is the father of the nation. I never hear nobody in the PNM say Dr. Rowley is the God, right? That didn't happen. But the UNC, they have a different breed, boy. Leon Graves says that's revenue earning stream. What madness. Yeah, Leon, I don't understand how these people operate. I don't know. I really don't understand it. It makes no sense. Because if your argument then is that is not the purpose of the facility, and you're not using the cricket academy itself, so it's not like you're going on the cricket grounds. You're using the car park. You are generating millions in revenue, right? But you're saying that is a deviation from the true purpose. So is it that you're no longer going to have concerts in the Hasely Crawford Stadium, like the CC Winans concert that they had a few months ago that Mrs. Persad-Bissessar attended so that she could hear CC sing live the goodness of God? Because you can't adopt that approach for one sporting facility and not apply it across the board. And as we know, there are lots of concerts that take place in the Hasely Crawford Stadium. And it's not in the car park. Not in the car park. It's on the actual field. You see all of this infrastructure set up, and that is where it takes place. So, are you going to now adopt the same approach for that facility as well? I just asking the question. So, at the time when the government needs revenue, they're finding ways to take revenue out of the pockets of the state. Millefleur, I've often told you all, Millefleur makes money from renting out the Heritage House, right? National Trust. They have events there. As a matter of fact, on the 29th of this month, they have Puncha Creme, Parang, and Pan, right? Which will be hosted on the grounds of Millefleur. But that facility also falls under UDCOT. So I don't know if Mr. Bidesi, the chairman, who's also the chairman of FCB, if he's now going to come and say, well, you all cannot have events there. You can't make money to support the small subvention that you get from the state to do all of the work that you do to develop Nelson Island, to maintain Millefleur, because it is not cheap. UDCOT has to spend a lot of money in maintaining that Heritage House. And where they fall short, the trust makes money by having these events on the premises, by renting out the facility for ads, renting out the facility for weddings and engagement parties and photo shoots and so on. So I wait to see if they're now going to come and say the same thing, that Millefleur and Stallmeyer's Castle, that make money in this way, that they too will no longer be allowed to do so. But they're bright. When UNC wins. And Brian says Trump can't shoot no one. They boo him in the stadium. I saw that. Sorry, thank you so much, Jasmine. Right, the CC Winers concert was in the Oval. Right, so I think the last concert they had there, I know Marshall Monday, they had there when they had the whole fiasco about with people being lined up for hours and stuff before they were able to get in. Firewoman is asking, what about government campus carnival events happen there too? So true. That's another one. So maybe, and that too falls under the ambit of UDCOT. So maybe they're going to stop having events there as well. Well, they try and confine everything to the savannah, I guess. So the parts of the savannah that remains untouched by carnival fetes, maybe they might now rent out that part of it. So, to destroy the savannah now. Because that's in town, so there's no problem. In fact, a lot of the UNC supporters saying, yeah, that good. Move all them fetes out of South and carry it into Port of Spain. So I can see the state opening up itself to a lot of legal jeopardy with persons who have already signed contracts, who would have booked out these venues long in advance and paid their monies, and now are to be told that you will not be able to utilize the facility. Leroy Jack says, so they're stupid. They don't play cricket in the car park. Loss of revenue. UNC match. That's true. It's in the car park. Stink and dirty. It makes money in the car park. So when all the paint and whatever, you wash it down after, take money. If you want to increase the cost, go ahead and do so. Make money. Let the facility pay for itself. All right? If you find you're making enough, well, okay. I don't think the promoters will have a problem, because if you tell them you have a fete with 12,000 people, they will just increase the price of the ticket a little bit to cover any increase in the cost of renting the venue. Simple. That's business, simple business. But you rather leave it there. But then remember 2010 to 2015, they say that was just a waste of PNM money. They did absolutely, government money. They did absolutely nothing. Left it there to rot, to rust. And it took the PNM coming back into office in 2015 to finish the stadium. And today, it is now available. And they are the first, the same people who criticize it, they are among the first. Every time they have an event there, a cricket event, they are the first in line to get inside. But folks, it is 9:16. My webinar begins at 9:30. So this is where I will have to take my leave. But we will chat again on Sunday morning, because I'm sure Mr. Roberts and his nonsense will be dominating the storyline over the course of the next couple of days. I have seen Mr. Gonzalez has responded to Mr. Roberts, and it's left to be seen if Mr. Gonzalez is going to take legal action or otherwise. But he is not pleased, and he has had to come to defend his wife, his children, and his family, whose personal business is now in the public domain. Right? And they have their silly let's not get this here. Right. Where is it? Yeah. Heady nonsense. What kind of work Ralph's wife does do in St. Vincent Boy? The woman has $415,000 in one account. She in one as she many bank accounts. If Ralph Gonzalez says his daughter is married and has a child, why is he brother Storm paying her HTC rent, and why is he father Ralph paying her HTC mortgage? Is he? That one make no sense. Like he was drinking when he wrote it. So they already start. So the supporters now attacking Ralph Gonzalez. There's not enough that Roberts did it. Now the supporters are jumping on the bandwagon and also attacking. Right? So, and they expect that to go unanswered by the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines who love their prime minister dearly. Just as these blind sycophants here who if you say one thing negative about their leader, they're ready to fight you, to cuss you. Everything is HYMC, HYMC. That's all they know in their vocabulary. So in the same way, Mr. Roberts is so incensed because the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines would have expressed a view that is contrary to what Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has expressed. Don't you think that the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines would adopt a similar approach? And these idiots, these buffoons don't realize that these things have a way of coming back to haunt you. That the citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, coming on the heels of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa declaring that CARICOM is an unreliable partner, and Trinidad and Tobago needs to look to expand trade outside of CARICOM. These people will simply say, well, we're not buying nothing from Trinidad, boycott Trinidad and Tobago products, and so they could disrespect our Prime Minister like that. And no less a person than a government minister in Trinidad and Tobago is disrespecting our Prime Minister and his family like that and putting their lives at risk. Well, then we don't want nothing to do with Trinidad. We're not supporting. We import a lot of agricultural products from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? Blue food, plantain, yam, dasheen, all of these different things, cassava and stuff we import from there. When these people decide they'll be selling nothing to Trinidad, to hell with them. And who did that? It wasn't Rowley, it wasn't the PNM. Jasmine says, the devil always finds work for empty minds and idle hands. Let them go ahead, time longer than twine. Jennifer says, while they're watching Ralph, we will keep watching Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Atomic says it is very dangerous that confidential information is being put in the hands of Arnel Roberts. Yes. I think Mrs. Gonzalez and her husband and her children should have some kind of a recourse with that. This is confidential information. How could you, as a minister, go and take people's confidential information from the ministry and put it out there like that? And you know what's worse? These are the same people who, when they were in opposition, every time the PNM brought legislation that sought to deal with things like white-collar crime and so on, with the FATCA bill, when they wanted to, with the reciprocity clause, that stated that the United States can ask Trinidad and Tobago for information about their citizens who have property or who have assets in this country for tax purposes. And in the same way, Trinidad and Tobago's government can ask the United States for information about our citizens who have property and assets over there. The UNC were against that. You all remember the Civil Asset Forfeiture Bill, better known as the Explain Your Wealth Bill? When the PNM brought that and the UNC refused to support it initially because they said the PNM would use it to victimize supporters of the UNC, and that they would use that to be able to access people's private information through the Board of Inland Revenue and get all of that, and they could use that to weaponize and victimize and go after and persecute UNC supporters. The very thing that they complained about is what Arnel Roberts did yesterday by going into the archives of the HDC and to pull out this confidential information. Even if you want to say they bought units from Victoria Keys, which they are entitled to do, there's nothing preventing them or anybody else from doing that. Why you have to come and put that the woman has a bank account in the Bahamas with how much hundreds of thousands of US dollars? What does that have to do with the purchase of a Victoria Keys unit? Come and talk your talk on that if you want to. But to put that information outside here, right? You know, he knows exactly what it is he is doing. And that is to assist the opposition in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because as far as Arnel Roberts and probably his colleagues are concerned, Ralph Gonzalez is PNM. So we need to get rid of the red in St. Vincent and the Grenadines too. And anything that he could do to assist the opposition there, he will do. Because with just over 2 weeks to go before their general election, Mr. Gonzalez should not have to be coming to defend himself, when he should be focusing on the election and telling the people of his country what he has done and what he intends to do for them should he succeed in getting another term. He has to now be putting out fires and having to respond to a government minister, an irresponsible government minister in Trinidad and Tobago, right? And this is the kind of thing that is going to earn condemnation from other heads of government in the Caribbean region, asking, why isn't Kamla Prasad Bisesa reining in her ministers from engaging in this type of thing? It is unheard of, unprecedented, and totally unprofessional. But not the UNC sees nothing wrong with that. And then talking about, well, now Trinidad and Tobago is a laughing stock. If we went before, we are certainly one now, right? And he definitely needs to be sued for that foolishness. You put out the people all. The only thing you tell us is what color underwear the people wearing. So as I said, all who didn't know who Ralph Gonzalez's children were, what their names were, where they working, the man had to come and say that his daughter is Trinidadian by descent because her mother, Eloise, is a Trinidad and Tobago citizen, right? And his daughter is married to a Trinidadian, and they have a child together from that marriage. So in more than one respect, she is Trinidadian and entitled to purchase. But there is nothing preventing any foreign citizen from purchasing any of those Victoria Keys units because they are not subsidized, they are not low income, and they are on the open market for all and sundry to see and purchase once you can afford it. I leave that there. Folks, we will chat again on Sunday morning. I have no invitations as of now, so more than likely I'll come on usual time, but if anything changes between then, I will come on as soon as I am available so to do. All right? But we will continue the live sport saga and whatever else develops between now and Sunday, because as you know, with this government, it's never a dull moment, never ending with them. Every day is every day. So I even saw last night former Minister of National Security Carl Alfonso was interviewed as they went to pay tribute to the fallen soldiers on the anniversary of, I think, D-Day, I think it is. Well, and he was lamenting the fact that there was no parade this year, as is the norm, that the ceremony was significantly scaled down, and he's asking the government why the disrespect. But remember, he was part of the People's Partnership in 2010 to 2015. He was their last Minister of National Security. But I will also read for you all on Sunday the views of a former minister under the People's Partnership government and his take on this national revitalization project that the government is proposing. Needless to say, he's a businessman. Obviously, he's one of the persons that the government is courting, and he is not interested, and he made no bones in making that known, right? But we will discuss that on Sunday. So enjoy the rest of your day, folks. Make it a productive one. Shilan Bodhi is asking, what is the deal with the OFAC? So there is no deal, right? The US gave the government of Trinidad and Tobago 6 months in which to achieve certain KPIs, key performance indices, with respect to getting that Dragon gas deal back on track. And because of the acrimonious relationship that currently exists between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago, nothing has happened with respect to that OFAC license, right? And now with the arrival of the Gerald Ford, the largest aircraft carrier and warship in the world, and its armada having arrived in Caribbean waters yesterday, Mr. Maduro has now put some 200,000 Venezuelan troops on alert, and it's left to be seen what happens from now. Because I don't think you would spend all that money to bring this armada to the Caribbean just for sun, sea, and sand. All right? That's a lot of money. That is a huge vessel. Takes a lot in terms of fuel and rations and all of these different things. There's over 4,000 soldiers you have on this vessel, not including the armada of smaller warships that accompanied it. So let's see what's going to happen in the next few days. If they're just going to come here and cruise, or if we're going to see some action. But Mr. Maduro has no time to deal with any OFAC issues right now. And in fact, they are asking, well, I saw yesterday Mr. Monilal put out this thing about some energy publication talking about Exxon could realize spend some $20 billion in the fields that the deepwater acreage that they are supposed to be developing. So that's the big, they need a distraction. They need something, right? So that was the big story that he pushed out yesterday in respect of that. And Venezuela is asking for details as to where exactly this acreage is, because they want to see if any of it bounds with their waters. And if so, they will have none of it, right? So It's not a good day. Right. Slimy Show says he called up the entire family name. Yes. Man called out the people, the man, wife, and the 2 children, everybody. You don't do those things, right? Goes to the lowest, that's the lowest of the low. You feel if minister in the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines were to come and talk about Kamla Persad-Bissessar and tell you about her son and her grandchildren and all of these different things, and her husband, how you feel Mrs. Persad-Bissessar will take it, right? If they come and say, well, Gregory Bissessar have X amount of money in this account, or as the case may be, or Persad-Bissessar's son Chris have money wherever else and whatever, and so on, and he buy this, and no, the UNC will want to turn up the place, but the same thing that they would not like for their own leader, they are now supporting and sanctioning and sharing and added their own foolishness to it. But so true, the crowd at Slimy Show says the crowd he panders to are truly the lowest of us. They are baskets of deplorables, right? There are some things you need to stand on principle and say this is wrong and condemn it. That should not happen. Because you put the man business over there. As I said, I'm sure many of you didn't even know who Raul Gonzalez, didn't know all of this intricate details and information about the man's family. But now it is out there. I know he has to come and defend this foolishness. Well, let's see if Persad-Bissessar is going to say anything. If the media is going to ask her for comment on that, or if she's going to try and avoid the media for the rest of this week and hope that this dies down. Red Scorpion is asking where the new coat of arms. Good question. Folks, Slimy Show said, I'm so embarrassed to be in the chat. I'm in there to push back. Low lives and racists. Yes, that is terrible. I agree with you. Some lines you should not cross, and Anil Roberts, Philip Alexander, and David Naked, they don't know that, right? They don't understand that. And what's interesting is that the 2 of them, the 2 junior ministers, bumping the gum, but the substantive minister, David Lee, is nowhere to be found. He has nothing to say, and therefore, if there was any validity or substance to what they are advocating and what they are saying, shouldn't the substantive minister, the El Capo de Tutti Capi of the ministry, shouldn't he be speaking on that? Not them. They are lower level functionaries compared to him, but he has said nothing on it. He has made no comment on it. He put out no statement, but they all over social media come in and doing that, because as I said before, that's Kamla Persad-Bissessar's lapdogs. That is her pothounds that when they need a distraction, send out the 2 of them along with David Naked, and they will do their thing. Folks, we'll chat on Sunday. Right, my webinar has started. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Slimy Show. I'll go ahead, I'll check it out after my webinar. Right, but I would recommend those of you who could stomach it, go on his live, go on his page and let him know. Go in the comments under the video and let him know what a low-life scum he is. Right? How unprincipled and uncouth he is. Because while he feel he did something good, he did not. And should be condemned in the highest. So, if you're so inclined, Douglas Politics, pull up the thing and let Mr. Roberts know just how you feel as a citizen of this country, him embarrassing you, and by extension, the country as a whole, and trying to create this diplomatic imbroglio that is totally unnecessary. You're most welcome, and Jasmine is saying where do you find it? So just go on Facebook, Jasmine, and just search Douglas Politics. That's the name of Anil Roberts' Facebook page, Douglas Politics, and you will see the video, his most recent video that he posted out. Yeah. So we'll chat on Sunday, folks. Take care. Yes, Wayne, I touched on that. Wolfette Sabana, the Brian Lara. They're still Jenny Cupid is saying she can't stand to watch him. Nor can I, but sometimes yes, I take a little grab all. So true, Wayne. Distractions. That's all they're looking for. Look forward to distractions for the next few weeks as the live sport story unfolds, and I will certainly cover it here, and we will discuss it in great detail. They will not escape. So we'll chat on Sunday, folks. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day.